The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Nikita Zadorov, yeah, he might be leaving the Vancouver Canucks because it's all good because GM Quinn Hughes is on the case.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this abbreviated bonus episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Kyle Bowen, to talk about a breakup, okay? A breakup. And do we play the sad music here? I don't know, because I'm
don't do it. Don't do it. We ain't crying over losing a number 5 D-man. I know I loved Zadorov for weeks and weeks, and I wanted him signed, and I wanted him to be this guy, and I said Adam Foote can make him into the next Rob Blake and all these things. But you know what? I don't give a... Don't play the sad music, man. Hey, we feeling it, man. We feeling it.
Yeah, it's all good. And you know what? I know guys like Kempner Canucks are going to be pretty sad right now. And we had some commenters saying that I'm going to stop watching this team if they don't re-sign Zadorov. But let's give your boy Beggsy some credit here because, and I got to be honest with the people too, because I did get pretty caught up in the Zadorov hysteria, if you will, because of how good he was in the playoffs, right? I mean, who doesn't love a player like Zadorov? I mean, he kicked some ass, right? One of the hardest hitters in the league, scoring goals the way he did in the playoffs. But, you know, let's not sugarcoat it. This is still a flawed player who was likely to be kind of that fourth, fifth defenseman on your Vancouver Canucks next season. And yeah, it would have been nice to re-sign him, but at the number he's going to command, which is around $5 million, you know, certainly at $5 million, I'm walking away. Below $5 million, I probably would have been open to re-signing. But again, I think that's, to me, more emotional than logical, to be honest with you. Again, one of the most fun players in the NHL right now, but man, oh man, there are bigger priorities for the Vancouver Canucks, and we talked about it just a couple hours ago. Go check out that episode if you haven't already, where we talked about Jake Gensel, but more importantly, what the Canucks do if they don't land Jake Gensel, in terms of who they might target on the trade market. And we brought up some guys that haven't been as discussed as you've heard from other insiders around. But Nikita Zadorov, I'm not too sad about him leaving. I'm not incredibly surprised about him leaving. And Kyle, let's go back and answer one of these questions. We have the answer now. When we were asking a couple weeks ago between Zadorov, Joshua, and Lindholm, how many of them stay, how many of them go? And I think our Locked On listeners we're kind of split between 1 out of 3 and 2 out of 3 staying. And now we know the answer. It's going to be 1 out of 3 to go to Joshua, the only one of those 3 sticking around.
And look at this quote from Patrick Alvin, right? That put the nail in the coffin. Somebody go check up on Kempner, man. Somebody go check out on Burnt Sticks. Or any of like the Vancouver Canucks fans that are just into real hockey. We're into real hockey men. All those guys are hurt right now. But look at Patrick Alvin, okay? He's saying this. He said, I cannot overpay for one single player. And Nikita Zadorov was extremely good for us in the playoffs and a character guy. We did our best to sign him, but he decided that he wanted to go somewhere else. I can't overpay for one single player, a.k.a. we can't overpay for depth pieces. And Trevor, I don't know if you have the knowledge in front of you right now, but who were the bone-crushing defensemen on the Dallas Stars, the Edmonton Oilers, the New York Rangers, I guess Trouba, whatnot, and the Florida Panthers? You know, like I just told the people on the last episode, the Florida Panthers got rid of Radko Gudas and they won a cup. You know what I'm saying? If we're replacing Nikita Zadorov for Chris Tanev, I'm telling you, we're a better hockey team. I know that's hard to believe because of the extraordinary things that Zadorov was doing in those 2 weeks, because it's the truth. He was extraordinary. This guy's going bar down. He's going bar down. He's going coast to coast. He's going bar down, bro. 100-mile-per-hour slap shot to tie up the game or whatever in game 1 against Edmonton, too. Like, he's doing some crazy things. He was our second-best defenseman in the playoffs. But you cannot overpay for 2 weeks. You can't overpay for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You can't do it, especially for a guy who ultimately helped your team get to round 2. It just wasn't convincing enough for, again, Rutherford and Alvin, who are champions.
You're going to laugh at this, Kyle, but I'm looking at some hits per 60 info among defensemen only in the NHL playoffs this season. And Do you want to know who was second in the NHL in terms of hits per 60 behind Jacob Trouba? It's a Florida
Oliver,
Panther.
Oliver Ekman
Oliver
Larson.
Ekman-Larsson. Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So that tells you how much hits really matter in the NHL. That gives you some Michael Del Zotto vibes in terms of a guy who's quietly stacking up the hits, but not really making that big of a physical impact. And yeah, looking at the past few Cup champions, look, I think there's a good argument that as fans, and you and I included, let's include ourselves with the people on this, because we were reporting Zadorov coming back around that $4.5 million range. I think we were overvaluing physicality to an extent here, right? Because Zadorov, again, has never been an elite offensive producer. He's mainly been a bottom pairing guy, but he delivers bone crushing hits and he can score some cool goals. But consistently, he has proven he's not a guy that's worth around $5 million a season, which is what someone's gonna give him. At this point, I kind of hope it's a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know what I mean? But aside from that, I mean, yeah, the Florida Panthers, again, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Dmitry Kulikov, Aaron Ekblad are all up there in terms of most hits among NHL defensemen in the postseason. Going back to last season, Vegas had a big blue line, but didn't do a lot of hitting. Like, their defenders were way down the list in terms of hits per 60 liters. The Colorado Avalanche in 2022, a blue line that, Josh Manson chucked the body around, but no one else really hits on that team. Devon Taves a little bit, Sam Jordan a little bit. But again, that's a blue line that prided themselves on, being able to move up the puck up the ice and being good in transition. Just much the same. Tampa Bay, again, big bodies on the blue line, much like Vegas, but not a lot of big hitters. So hitting doesn't really matter. It's fun. It's cool. You got to have some aspect of physicality on your team. I don't think you can have a team full of 5 defenders. But it does get overvalued for sure.
It does get overvalued, but I don't want to say hitting doesn't matter. Like, you wear down teams, right? You open up the door for upsets to happen. You open up the door for star players to get injured because Zadorov is crushing somebody along the boards. I mean, look at what happened with Tyler Myers and Leon Draisaitl, right? Draisaitl not really that effective in Game 7 and whatnot against the Canucks. He kind of like just slipped up after Tyler Myers broke his rib, right? The physicality does play a toll. It does work, but in Canucks terms, or in this world that we're living in on the west coast, the best coast of Canada, in that building, Rogers Arena, Alvin said it best. They cannot overpay right now. They can't do it. They can't do it. They can't overpay for depth pieces. Why? Because they may want to overpay for Jake Gensel. They want to crack at it, And maybe that dream ends in a couple of hours if Carolina re-ups on him, right? But that's when you want to do a bit of overspending. Because if you land a fish like that because you didn't give Zadorov an extra $250K or $500,000 and you put that towards Gensel and you get him, you unlock a different animal in Elias Pettersson. And that takes you over the top. So it is what it is. I mean, kudos to Patrick Allvin for even communicating that to the people. Like, that's a bold statement. Bold statement. Like, to say that, to say we can't overpay is literally saying, we do not think Zadorov is that good. But he does.
And I think Alvin's got a great point, right? And, kudos to them for having their heads screwed on straight. Well, we're out here talking about hits and culture, and you got to keep the big guy.
We love Zadorov, man. We love Zadorov. A month ago, bro, when you're watching those games, and you're watching the playoff games, and he just nailing Roman Josi. Remember that hit in, like, Game 4, I think, along the boards? And, like, this guy's doing that. He's going bar down against Soros. He's going bar down against Skinner. Like, he's doing things. He played really, really good. And if he gets paid because of that 1-month sample size, congratulations. But again, this is somebody said it right in the last episode. I think it was Anthemous, right? The Canucks are different. This is different. They're led by a different leadership group. They've never had this much championship pedigree in their organization. There's a way to do things systematically and patiently, and there's room for little irrationality, right? Little irrationality. If you're gonna sprinkle in some assumption and irrationality, it's again spending an extra $500,000 to lock up Jake Gensel.
Yeah,
just the truth.
Yeah, 100%. So bye-bye, Zadorov. See you later. Good luck in Utah or Toronto or wherever the hell you're going. Kyle, we talked a bit about
Edmonton, bro. I would not be surprised. Bro, this sounds crazy. I would not be surprised if Zadorov goes to Edmonton. He seems like a swaggy dude. I know, like, there would be that narrative there. I played in Calgary, played in Vancouver. Those guys just made it to the fourth round, the Stanley Cup Finals. Zadorov wants to win. Would not be surprised.
That would be so funny if he went to Edmonton after he just said like 2 months ago, Edmonton is
Yeah.
nothing to do except watch hockey.
Yeah.
But okay, so we talked about Chris Tanev a bit. Again, if you want more of that conversation, go check out our episode from earlier this morning. Man, oh man, we packed a ton into that episode. Let's talk a bit about John Marino. Okay, so John Marino again reports from Frank Saravalli.
Frankie
John
asked.
Marino is on the trade block, and obviously John Marino has been discussed in this market quite a bit over the past couple of years. Ties to the management team here. Jim Rutherford acquired him from, ironically, the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for like a 6th-round pick. Ends up being a top 4 defenseman. Signs with the Devils when the Canucks were chasing him and could have had him. He was traded from Pittsburgh to the Devils. Your thoughts on John Marino coming back to the Vancouver Canucks? I'm going to preface by saying this. I do think Chris Tanev is option A for your Vancouver Canucks because of the familiarity, because of the vibes, baby, and the fact that, he could probably sign on a deal. He'll probably sign at a bit of a discount or sign on a shorter term deal. But John Marino's a good defenseman. Kind of surprised that the Devils are shopping him, to be honest with you. But I do like Marino at that cap in that 4.4 range, and he's exactly what the Vancouver Canucks need. Just like Chris Tanev is. They need a second pairing right shot defenseman so that Talon Myers can be on your bottom pairing.
What are the Devils looking for? What are the Devils looking for? Like, do they like John Marino? Is John Marino a player that they just want to get off their books because they want to do other things with that money? Like, how you talked about in the last episode? Go check it out if you're new to the show. You talked about, hey, maybe the Canucks want to weaponize their cap space and be the lender for these teams. Is John Marino a dump? I know he's a good player, but sometimes these things happen. Like, it depends what we'd have to give up, because if it's more draft capital or even a prospect that we don't even have, like, I don't even want to go there. I want to take a stab at using this money without giving away assets. So again, be a lender or sign Chris Tanev. The more and more I think about this, Quinn Hughes, Captain Quinn Hughes, Beggsy said it off the top. Quinn Hughes is secret agent, potentially, right? Literally speaking, a secret agent. I feel as if this guy told Alvin already, like, don't worry, Chris Tanev is coming home. And whether it be Tanev or Marino, I'm curious to see, like, I keep bringing this up, not maybe because I'm delusional, but because I think there is something there. I want to see how Soucy elevates his game if he gets another guy that's better than Tyler Myers playing with him. Because right now, the biggest problem with the Vancouver Canucks is, on paper, their top 4 is Quinn Hughes and Aronik, but that second pairing is Myers and Carson Soucy, and that's just not good enough. And if they want to fix it by just making one move, it's, again, elevating Carson Soucy's defensive partner, because I think there's more that guy can give if he has some aid.
Yeah, so you asked a couple questions there. I'll answer this. In terms of what the Devils are after or why they're even trading John Marino in the first place, I really do believe it's because of the wealth of defense, especially on the right side of young guys that they got. Like Simon Nemec and Luke Hughes can both play the right side. You got Dougie Hamilton who plays the right side. So John Marino is really a luxury asset for them that they don't need, and he's getting paid $4.4 million for the next 3 seasons after this one. So I think what the Devils are looking for is probably a top 6 winger, which doesn't make the Canucks a great trade partner, because what are the Devils, or what are they about to lose theoretically, or they did lose? They traded him, Tyler Toffoli, and they haven't replaced that guy yet. And he was a top 6 staple for them, a top line staple for them. So if the Devils don't get that in return, which the Canucks don't really have, then I think that maybe they get like a 1st-round pick or some kind of pick. Maybe not a first for John Marino, but probably another asset that they can use to maybe flip in another trade. So I don't know if the Canucks are the perfect partner for John Marino or for the New Jersey Devils, but in general, I still would prefer Chris Tanev giving up 0 assets. And maybe that Chris Tanev's the guy that can be the placeholder for Tom Willander, as we talked about before.
There you
Shout
go.
out to the everydayers. They know that.
Bring Tanev home. And, you brought up a great point, man. Like, you want to give term and money to Zadorov. Like, you don't shut down the door of Willander or Pettersson, the DPD, getting a chance to play like within the next 18 months, but it just makes it harder, right? Because your number 5 defenseman has 4 years left on his deal. So, these things make sense. I'm going to trust Patrick Alvin and Jim Rutherford. I know we just lost a fan favorite, but we may be getting one back. And I'm telling people right now, Chris Tanev and Carson Soucy, That could be dominant. Hey, Philip Hronek and Carson Soucy, that could be dominant as well. For real. If Tanev is playing with Hughes. Like, Trevor changed this whole narrative. He changed my whole emotional aspect or viewpoint on Zadorov a couple days ago when he said it was more important to beef up our top four than lock up Nikita Zadorov. And I think the Canucks know that as well. Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs at the Don't Doze Art Lab. We got to get out of here. Locked on Canucks. Zadorov is gone. We're not overpaying for Nikita Zadorov. I didn't say that. Patrick Alvin, the coldest mother effer in the game. Saying that to the fans, saying that to Zadorov, saying that to Rick Tocchet. This guy means business, okay? He does. Beggsy, sign us out. Discord link in the bio. Again, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. It really does help us out a lot. One love to the people. Be all right. It's gonna be all right. Oh.
Let's go, baby. Let's get out of here. We thought we weren't going to be back to Canada today, but here we are. We might be back as news breaks here. So make sure that you're subscribed. Like the show wherever you listen to podcasts or here on YouTube. We appreciate the heck out of you. Enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy life. And enjoy Locked On Canucks, baby. We will be back on Monday, but we may be back before then. For now, we got to sign out. I'm Trevor Beggs. That sexy mofo is Kyle Bound. And you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On podcast